everyone. Welcome to another Dev Insight. This one's going to be on mid-season balance changes. I'm Molly, one of the community managers for Paladins, and with me I have Kevin and Garrett, two of the designers.
Hey,
how's it going?
Oh, it's pretty good. How about y'all?
Super excited. I think mid-season has gone over pretty well so far, and we're excited to let the players get it in their hands.
Yeah, cool. So we're just going to hit on all the changes, kind of talk about what specifically we changed, why we changed it. And we've got Alyssa on the side in Twitch and Mixer chat ready to help you guys out and answer any questions that you've got. Cool.
Yes. She's going to pull all of the really important questions.
Yes.
Such as
Grohk flying.
Grohk, yes. Like, can we buff Grohk more?
He can fly.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
What if he actually let the rest of his team fly too?
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me, okay?
Please don't. I'm sorry.
All right, let's just get right into it.
Let's
So the
do it.
first one is Androxus. We changed one of his abilities, Defiance, changed the functionality a little bit to make it work as an extended energy punch. It increased the range and reduced the frontal cone, and it can now hit multiple players.
Yep.
Yeah, so Androxus Defiance could be a little bit awkward to use. Mostly when you look at Androxus, he's obviously a flank. He's trying to get close to players so he doesn't have that damage fall off, looking for the headshots and trying to isolate out a single target. But a lot of his playstyle doesn't indicate that he needs to be right up
close.
into melee
Like,
range.
close, but not like, hey, what's going on here? Let me just
It's really,
pop you one,
it's really
right?
uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well,
Very.
it is literally in game
Stop
too,
getting
right?
so close to
Trying
me.
to get that close to someone, it's rough.
And so just giving it that little bit of an extra range. Obviously, you're not going to be hitting people to your sides a little bit more. You are going to have to aim this ability. But this should help you finish off targets without being that awkward distance. It'll be a little bit of a learned thing, but I think players will get used to it quickly.
Yeah.
And the new aspect of that, right, is that it's actually AoE.
Mhm.
So with your increased cone, if you're doing this on like a stacked point or in a close corridor, you can actually kind of turn the tide on more than one target, which is, we might see some interesting things there. I'm really interested because we also buffed the legendary, or excuse me, the talent that impacts this, right? Didn't we?
It was 10%. It wasn't in the patch notes, but it's going to be moving to 15%.
All right, so we're increasing that, but essentially trying to highlight that playstyle more in an attempt to validate more of the legendaries. Like, as we go through, by the way, all of these legendary changes are either because they don't feel particularly impactful, lots of players aren't playing them, or they're grossly over or underperforming.
Yep.
It's not because it's on a whim or we're throwing darts at a board, right? Or maybe we are, who knows?
It's only once.
The goal is, right, to have really powerful and impactful choices that good amounts of our players feel are valid and want to explore. So all these explorations, and this isn't by no means final. We're going to have many more mid-seasons, many more kind of season balance patches. So always looking to improve, always looking. But we've seen, like Kevin was saying, a lot of really good feedback on the implementation that we took with this one, which was a little bit more, we're like, okay, we're going to kick these, the magnitude of this diversity on these playstyles, we're cranking it up. So it's like a lot of physical things that change the direct way you interact with the character.
And that's
what you guys like.
And that's also one of the cornerstones of Paladins too, is just being able to play the game how you want. If you really love Makoa's spin, right? So we're going to give you the opportunity to just spin all game if you really want to. If you enjoy that, while also obviously making sure that it is impactful and does actually change the way you play your character.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so also the talent Darkstalker, we've increased the health threshold from 40% to 50%.
Yep, this is pretty basic. This is, again, just trying to normalize the talents. Darkstalker was underperforming across all ranks, so we just kind of bumped up that threshold just slightly.
Cool. Perfect. Next one, Ashe. She has been a pretty hot topic in the community. They believe she's a little bit underpowered. So do you guys agree with that? What is your kind of thought process behind the change to her ability to assert dominance, increasing the horizontal strength of the jump?
We actually saw a lot of Ashe play in the recent LAN. Really dominating on Frog Isle, which is kind of that's a secondary thing about balance that is kind of hard to conceptually look at a little bit, is we have a lot of diverse maps with hazards as well, and champions are going to be strong on certain maps, Timbermill being I think the
Maybe
cornerstone
we should
of
just,
that
like,
for snipers.
We should It's very interesting, guys. Like the amount of polarizing data you see for characters on specific maps, because it's not something that's like overtly apparent. If you think of like all of our characters in a vacuum, just in this blank space, and you're comparing one to the other, it's not really the valid way to do it, right? What you need to do is think about the environment that they're competing in, and that's hard to do because it takes a lot of time and experience to do so.
It's also skill levels too, right? Like some hazard maps, you're not really seeing a lot of hazardous kills at lower skill levels. But as players learn and experience the game, learn about knockups, knockbacks, you'll start to see kind of that swing momentum. Players that are very good snipers, right, on Timbermill are exceptionally strong, and just kind of trying to buff them in a normal way will just make them even more polarizing on one of those maps.
Or like Inara too. Like if I remember correctly, like Inara just like stomps on Frozen Guard.
Oh yeah.
Like those walls are going up on that point, and you are not coming like back into that point for walk your butt around, or it's tough because there's a deployable on one and then the wall on the other, and you're like, this is my space.
Yeah, and so Ash, we're kind of happy with her having her strength on certain maps and certain areas of maps where she can knock back and be influential that way. We do think we actually tweaked her assert dominance either last patch or the patch before that, and we feel like we kind of went a little bit too soft on that, so we wanted to increase that. We want the ult to feel good. Before it was very floaty, and you come down. Now you're going to be able to get a little bit more distance, either to chase down a kill, or more than likely get to that last second point defense with this ability.
And just as with any kind of cyclical game that's modeled like ours, right? Anytime you change something, it could manifest a change like 3 months down the line that is like, oh god, like Ash is so meta now.
What
did
we do?
Yeah, like an example of this, guys, is in this last recent competitive set of games that was played, Willow actually showed up, was doing really well, and then by no coincidence, shortly thereafter in broad population and even in competitive population, Willow had a very significant increase in both play rate and win rate. This is a character that hadn't really been touched or edited
in a while,
but all of a sudden was met. And to be perfectly transparent, we were like actually considering like some reworks for extensive reworks,
decently enough,
to the point of prototyping them. But then we're like, nah, like clearly it's just the meta has evolved. Like people are understanding now the impact this character can have, and by all means that could absolutely happen with Ash. And on the opposite side of that is we don't ever just like put that character on a shelf and we're like, nah, it's done, never touching it again. So we will continue to monitor Ash. The interesting thing is there was a period in time where she was like really, really oppressive. Like she had full CC immunity, was diving backlines, just blowing people up, wasn't really being a frontline, which is usually the problem frontlines kind of succumb to, just because of what her kit is and what it does. So then we're faced with the idea that you have to detract from what makes the character special and unique in order to make it fair according to the role that it's being played in.
Yeah, I think that's always the hard thing too, is releasing a character. It has an identity early on, in whatever balance state it's at, and then especially a year, 2 years plus down the line, you may have made a number of balance changes based on kind of the core meta of the game shifting, and it kind of detracts from the champion itself. So it's always important to make sure that you keep the original identity of the champion when making these balance changes.
Yeah, and I think someone was upset that there wasn't a skin for some of our characters in this patch. I think it was like Ash and Grover.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to give you a hearty like wink into the cameras, guys.
No spoilers here.
Yeah, no spoilers. But don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Maybe sometime soon?
Maybe.
All right,
We'll
all right, cool. So there was a question from Twitch chat that Alyssa just sent to me. Will Ash be receiving any buffs on her base kit anytime soon? I feel like we pretty much covered that,
Yes,
where
I think
we're
so.
watching all the champions constantly. We're never just done with any champion.
Yeah, we'll see how kind of the front lines behave in this. We just kicked the tires, light the fires on all those supports. So
yep,
all
all
those
be that I think is going to have a really interesting meta shift.
That's what validated actually some of the more diverse picks in the competitive scene. Was you're seeing more barracks, you're seeing more willows, because that Furia can take care of those players now. So your supports can enable your other characters. So maybe some of the changes we've made will actually make Ash more viable. So we'll see how it plays out. But we have not forgot about the War Machine.
Perfect. Okay, moving on to the next champion. We've got Bomb King. There's a talent adjustment to royal subjects. We've reduced the radius increase from 30% to 20%.
Yeah, royal subjects, it was the strongest performing talent, I think, to most players. Not very surprised there.
Both efficacy and play rate.
Yeah,
right?
and it's
I think
also
so.
incredibly. It's incredibly easy to use. Obviously, this makes it so that your detonations are going to be more likely to hit. You're going to be able to hit more potential players. But there was some frustrating elements, hitting players behind walls when they felt they were far enough away. It's also one of those things where these explosions are learned to begin with, knowing how far to stay away from them. And we thought that the 30% increase was just a little bit too much on the extra explosion radius. A lot of frustrating elements around this, and this really is just going to bring this in line with the other talents. And this also comes with some bug fixes on Bomb King's other talents, Accelerant most notably.
Yep.
So we're excited to see how this dynamic will play out.
And we like the opportunity cost relationship of, should you choose to, you can opt into an easier in-hand experience or a more effective in-hand experience, but you're missing out on some pretty strong other talents. So if you want to practice just the base explosions, by all means, you're going to be more effective with just improved aim, and then the other tools in your toolkit versus
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of players start too, is with royal subjects, because it can kind of be hard to learn the sticky bomb detonation size early on, and having that extra size is just it makes it a little bit easier for players to get used to how Bomb King plays.
He's one of our more non-traditional weapons, but you guys love him. We love him. I think he's one of the most iconic characters we've released to date. So
He's so good.
Yeah.
He's a bomb. He's just a living bomb.
You may be my jester. It's perfect.
All right, cool. Let's move on to Buck. So the talent Bucking Madness has a brand new effect. Eliminations increase your attack speed by 20% for 10 seconds.
Yeah, so first off, I want to apologize. I don't know who you are, but when we were looking at the least played talents, Bucking Madness was by far the most bottom played talent. We're talking about like hundreds of matches across millions of matches in a single patch cycle.
That's a bucking shame.
It was the ability. It's kind of this weird interaction, right? Where when you're looking at talent balance, the more qualifiers you put on something to get the effect, the weaker it is naturally, and you have to make it very polarizingly strong. The effect itself, if it only happens once, maybe twice in a game, and that's kind of hard to balance by nature. Bucking Madness needed you to not only have your ultimate up, but then use your ultimate, and then you only had 6 seconds to get a kill to activate the effect. So it was very hard to actually activate the effect.
It's like, here's this window where you can be really, really, really good if you get the window and everything goes your way and nobody shoots you and you're not cauterized and you don't have to
hope you survive. Yeah, basically. So this is really just going to add a more way to consistently have almost a mini ultimate. That was kind of the idea behind this, and Bucking Madness to begin with, is now eliminations, which means you don't even have to get the killing blow. You'll be able to get a 20% attack speed increase, and that gives kind of Buck players 4 different ways to play, whether you want the sustain of bulk up, whether you want the burst of ensnare, whether you want more consistent damage output from Bucking Madness, or whether you want an extra CC from Bounce House. So this is clearly defining Buck as having 4 different styles of play with his talents,
which is really cool.
Yeah.
And just sorry, and I know I'm always rambling, but the interesting thing is that hey, what's going on over here? The interesting thing with Buck, right, is that he's always been the character that is really, really powerful and effective at our basically our most skilled populations, and is typically underperforming and underplayed in every other one. And when I say most skilled, I mean literally professional players, and very, very, very high ranked, and just doesn't get a lot of buy-in or interest from like 99% of the player base. It's kind of an odd scenario of a character in that he's got this shotgun while at the same time being likely very tanky, which means you have to kind of tune down the effect. He's a bit of a what's the word? Enigma he's a bit of an enigma of a character. So we're trying to make him less of an enigma, give his playstyles very clear, direct purposes. So let us know what you guys think. Like, play this character. Try and get your friends to play Buck. It's really fun. Leaping around and jumping on people is great. But we'd love to see more interest in that guy.
Yeah, and you can all try them out this weekend because we have an All Champions
Oh, free.
Unlocked
Oh, we do?
event.
Okay.
Yeah, starting today at 10 a.m., so it's live now. Yeah, so
Solid plug.
try out
We're good.
any of
Yep.
these.
Shout outs to
new-
Paladins. Big
Shout outs to
big fan of that
Paladins.
game.
I love that game.
So good.
So the next champion, another hot topic in the community, Cassie.
Yes.
We've gotten a lot of memes and a lot of feedback. Pretty much the same thing there regarding how strong she is and how much we haven't really touched her before. So today we are talking about her talent's impulse. We are decreasing the damage from 250 to 150, and then just breathe, where crossbow shots will deal 850 damage past 120 feet.
Yeah, so Cassie, obviously, again, not as much of an enigma, I'd say, as Buck, but can be pretty polarizing. Mostly her ultimate is very low impact up front. Reveal is, a strong mechanic, but it doesn't impact you at that moment. It doesn't negatively impact the opponents, doesn't positively impact you. So by nature, her base kit's a little bit stronger. We see the same thing with Strix as well. Weaker ultimate, stronger base kit. Her strength really relies in her potential combo damage into the crossbow impulse crossbow shot, which requires a fairly skilled player to always hit consistently. But right now the damage is fairly high of a combo, and we think bringing it down is actually going to put her in a really solid spot, especially compared with increasing her reload time from last patch, where she's going to be a lot more susceptible to those flanks. The decreased damage will actually make it so a lot of times you're going to need that one extra bolt of damage, and needing a 0.8 second refire champion to need one extra hit and then also have to aim and worry about projectile speed and kind of what your opponents can go. We actually should see a decent reduction in her overall damage and kills, and hopefully reduce the frustration of, a flank getting bursted down instantly. They'll have that extra shot potentially, and that extra roughly 1 second to make a move, and that's really all you're going to need against Cassie.
Yeah, and she also, Cassie is she's one of our oldest characters. Fundamentally, I don't think she's problematic. I'd say recently a lot of the limitations have kind of come from the fact that she does have this burst peak, right? And regardless of whether or not you think, yes, it's 2,300 damage is too much, like 22 is, or 20 is that's the right number. We've obviously reduced the value, so we're going to tone that down. There are some and also TTK often comes up with Cassie being involved in the conversation, Drogo's as well. We brought down Fuselot a little bit. We're bringing down Cassie a little bit, increasing the ability of supports to kind of get some better throughput and burst healing through various means. So it's something that it's not as simple as being like, just give all the supports their health back, or just make all the damages do 10% less damage. It's a little bit more complex. Also, Cassie's she's very simple in nature. She's very effective in nature. Largely, I mean, the combination of her mobility, her displacement, and then also her lethality at basically all ranges due to the nature of a projectile. There's no fall off. Travels very fast. And you have to line it up. So there's some skill requirement. She scales very well with skill. And there's also kind of condescending points in the community too. We've seen a lot of feedback of from certain areas being like, broken. Why isn't she nerfed? And the other people's like, nah, man. Like in our game, she's vastly overrated. She could get stomped. So it's not necessarily as easy of a picture, and we have to take all audiences into consideration. But hopefully these changes going forward, guys, a little bit more susceptible. The risk is we kill the talent. But I think a blast shot playstyle thing is ideal. Like we want unique ways to play, and landing that blast shot is a cool way to kind of get you invested in that character versus maybe more in-hand focus build or more mobility focus build.
And we actually do have a change to, again, kind of have that secondary dynamic sort of play, and maybe even change your play based on maps, which I felt is, I think this new talent hits as well. The Just Breathe. Like, this talent before was actually, there were so many, it wasn't necessarily a lot of qualifiers, it was just kind of conceptually hard to understand.
It was like
where I should be standing, because it was past 70 feet, it would do bonus damage, but the further it would do increased damage, except there was a max limit of it. So I'd have to be like, where, based on their standing and I'm standing, exactly how much damage I'm going to do. Is this going to be enough to finish them off? Do I need to actually wait for them to get an extra 10 feet away before I fire to get that extra damage?
That's too much thinking. We don't
I'm
want
not
you to
trying
think
to do
about all
that.
that.
No.
Like, you need to focus on hitting those shots, positioning your character, and what the state of the objective is at that point in time in the game, right? So you're either going to be getting the damage or you're not going to be getting the damage. And when you get the damage, hopefully it's valuable enough to you based on how you've positioned that you choose this talent in the future.
Yep. It's also going to be something where I think players are going to be able to learn where to stand on these maps a lot easier.
Well, drastically, especially if you opt into this.
Yeah,
right?
120, it's going to be a learning thing, but I think it'll be fun for those who figure out how to master it.
Yep.
Yep, perfect. Okay, thanks, guys. Next, we have Evie. Some talent adjustments here. Snow Globe, the duration has been increased from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, and the energy cost has been reduced from 60 seconds to 50 seconds.
Yep. So Snow Globe, this actually comes with a bug fix as well. So the talent was actually causing the her ultimate ability to actually travel faster than intended, so it was only lasting 1.6 seconds instead of 2 seconds. And it was also a different learned speed you would have to do. So we fixed it and now increased the length. And also, this is the first time we've actually done this type of mechanic where you could potentially have 2 ultimates up, and we thought that was a fun thing, mostly because Evie's ultimate isn't a ton of damage right up front.
Yeah, because Evie's a ton of damage, right?
It's at her base. She's really strong.
It supports her.
So
sets her up.
We're excited to kind of see how this works out. Players are going to be. It's not as frustrating. Her Ice Storm, if it only lasts 3 seconds as opposed to 6, so you'll get out of it pretty quickly. You can react a little bit better, and then Evie's giving up some pretty strong talents herself to go into this playstyle. And this is again, I think, the second least played talent. Outside of Bucking Madness in our game, so definitely needed to look at this one.
And it's a hard sell, right? When you're juxtaposing Wormhole right by it, like mobility is so powerful in our game, and that option to go back and forth, like anything we put next to that is gonna maybe have to be borderline broken on a character that is arguably borderline broken in the right hands. So. We'll see how she plays. And also, there are bug fixes going into this pack specifically for
Evie's blink,
in regards to her blink, in regards to Wormhole, client-server disagreements, and just really hashing out all of that. So it's hopefully a better experience for you guys.
Cool. Yeah, and we're looking forward to hearing some feedback on all of these changes. Wormhole, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we've removed the 1 second cooldown reduction on blink for that one.
Yep. So again, just kind of bringing these talents in line a little bit. It's already a really low cooldown, 4 seconds. So this is just going to help kind of normalize these talents. We also think, especially with the bug fixes we did to Blink, overall the Blink will be a much more enjoyable experience.
Do we have any questions from chat? I know we've just been yapping.
We have a few. They're definitely champion specific, so I'm just going to bring them up whenever we get there. Yeah, cool. Next one, Furia. So definitely another hot topic. For abilities, Kindle Soul has been burning topic.
Angel of Vengeance.
Yes. Kindle Soul has been reduced. The range has been reduced from 175 to 120, and then I'll just go over the cards now too. Hallowed Sight reduced the reveal length from 2 seconds to 1 second, and Light of Dawn reduced the shield from 100 to 50.
Yeah, so first of all, Furia did have the longest reach for any healer, which obviously, when we're looking, we don't want to make every support have the same reach and everything, or potential throughput and how it works, so we always try and do something new. Unfortunately, Furia, especially on longer points, was just able to save her teammates at a much greater distance than we had really wanted. Top that off with the 500 passive healing that comes with that, and then the Light of Dawn shield. We really like her damage output, and I think that's important to note. She was designed to be kind of that damage-esque support that would either be used as maybe a little bit weaker or less throughput main healer, or a very strong and powerful secondary healer with a team-wide ultimate. And her healing output, we just saw it a little bit too high from where we wanted. She was top 3, so we think this should help bring her down a little bit in comparison and allow other healers such as Seris to really shine as that primary throughput healer.
Yep. All right. Perfect. The next one's a big one. We're going to talk about Grohk. So
The man, the myth, the
a
legend.
ton of
Oh, yeah.
changes this patch. Let's just go through them real quick. Lightning Staff now deals 30% increased damage the longer you are on target. Healing Totem is now deployable at 100-foot range. Tempest now grants flight, increased radius, increased duration. And then 2 talents. Maelstrom increases the shock pulse cooldown, increases the shock pulse cooldown reduction from 0.3 seconds to 0.5 seconds, and Spirit's Domain Lightning Staff now applies a heal to allies. So that's a lot of differences there.
Absolutely. So I think
Ton of changes.
Yeah, I feel personally responsible for the state that Grohk was in previously. I think he's a character that has and for those of you who don't know, Grohk was like one of our original dudes, like in the game, and we had like 6 champions, and we had an incubator sized team, like I don't know, 10, 20 people. And then there was Grohk. But he has been through a lot of changes, both himself and with the game and what the game was and represented. So I think where he was previously was more of an unfortunate byproduct of kind of things changing and moving past him while he's still kind of sitting in a bit of a past state. So we wanted to take this moment to like try and reinvigorate and do a couple things to improve upon why I felt he kind of sucked in some situations. And like efficacy was never really Grohk's problem. Just across the board, Grohk is very reliable. He outperforms many other characters across all skill levels of play. It's just his impact is very hard to feel, and it's not particularly fun to do. Shout outs to all my Grohk mains that have like really embodied what that character is. Hopefully you guys like the changes. But what my goal was with these changes specifically was to take kind of the foundation of Grohk and then make it more intriguing, give it more depth. So his in-hand, right? The first thing we're going to talk about is the stacking debuff. Like typically, historically in shooters, these trace weapons, similar to Grohk, where it's like this beam, usually have like probably really insane DPS. If you can actually track very well.
The whole time.
But that weapon on a character in a class-based shooter who has a support role can't have that gib functionality. Like, it's not really how it works in the scene. But this kind of change gives you an ability to, if you're good enough, and it's on the base weapon, right? It's like, we didn't want this to be a specific talent. It could have been a talent, but I wanted every Grohk player to know that they have the ability to take down opponents should they be good enough for it. Granted, they're going to spend a little time on target tracking, and certain characters may be harder to track than others, but it's something that's rewarding, increases the depth of the in-hand for all Grohk mains, and potentially a bevy of new Grohk neophytes flocking to this character after these changes. But it just ultimately builds upon what was already existed, and hopefully is more fun.
Yep, perfect. Next one is going to be Grover, who's gotten some other changes to his ability. Blossom, the cooldown has been reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. And then talents, Deep Root has a new effect. Crippling Throw now roots enemies for 1 second and bounces between enemies.
Yeah, so Grover, and much like Ying that we're going to get to later, a lot of it is like Grohk, where it's hard to feel your impact sometimes, even though they are historically some of the strongest support champions we have. It's just the passive healing. You don't feel it as the Grover. Right. And you still have an issue dealing with reactionary healing with Blossom having a fairly large cooldown. So when a team or enemy decides to jump on you, to pile on your team, you really don't have the opportunity to instantly heal them through that. It just kind of, the passive healing helps your players survive these offshoot 1v1s or 2v2s, and that really is what kind of leads to Grover's high win rate. But we do think that he probably needs a little bit more of an ability to reactionary heal. So we brought down his cooldown for 2 seconds. We think this will be probably just enough. He obviously has a talent as well that can reduce that another 2.5 seconds. So
you stack a Chronos on that bad boy.
You're Blossom.
Doing this.
You'll feel like a normal, or not normal, but a more traditional Paladin.
Feel like
healer.
a normal tree.
A normal tree.
I'm a real tree.
Much more like Seris or Genos, where you're able to get those cooldowns off fairly quickly. And then Deep Roots was. This was interesting because you brought this up because we were trying to figure out this is, again, just like Snow Globe and Bucking Madness, one of our least played by far talents.
Yeah.
The direct impact was 400 damage and a root, which roots are very strong in a shooter.
Right? Yeah.
But you didn't really.
But clearly, like the value wasn't there. That
it wasn't
many
good enough.
people, yeah, it wasn't good enough.
So we decided to basically give it a little bit of shock pulse treatment and link people together, which I don't think we've shown a video yet. I don't think anyone has seen it. But it's actually,
we didn't show a video.
It's really cool,
It's kind of
though.
mesmerizing, right? To just see go doom, 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 doom. You're like, wow.
It's basically, yeah, you're going to see vines growing out from each player as they all get rooted and crippled as well. But they do have to be kind of in close proximity, right? So you're not going to be chaining people from halfway across the map, but on a point fight, you're just going to be able to root multiple players, maybe follow that up with a Viktor
really
barrage.
Powerful setup, yeah.
Yes.
Like
it's really
exciting,
for
guys.
enabling your team, and I think I think we'll see some awesome combos with this one.
Okay, sweet. Just kind of a general question from chat. Do y'all look at ban-related statistics when discussing potential balance changes? Is that something that you factor in?
It always is, but we don't necessarily see as much. I think there are, and I think this is actually really healthy. We don't see as much ban in our normal play, not looking at pro play.
Yeah.
Of like, this is clearly the most broken champion in players' eyes. It's pretty varied, and we actually see a lot of different types of bans, front lines, supports, some flanks, a lot of characters that a lot of people feel are frustrating and they specifically don't want to play with. I think our bans are pretty diverse.
So bans are less, this thing is overpowered, and more, I don't like to have to deal with this
Just a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah,
A little bit of both.
it's a mix.
Yep.
Cool. That's interesting. Next champion is Khan. His talent, Leon's shield, has been changed. The shield effectiveness has been increased from 60% to 100%.
Yeah, and this shield is obviously a personal shield for Khan. You're not really defending your team with it. Khan is not the Fernando sitting
Leon.
there.
He's guarding Leon
walking
too.
up. Yeah,
Leon could
that's because
fit
Leon's
right
small
behind him.
enough to
Yeah.
just get behind. So yeah, the shield, the effectiveness talent wasn't that good. I don't want to say good. It just wasn't impactful enough. You didn't feel it, especially against a team with a Wrecker. The 100% feels good. It feels like you can leave. If you're only facing off against one player, it really now feels like you can use the shield in a intelligent, controlled manner to survive for a fairly long time. And it's kind of adds to this interesting shield gameplay, which I don't really say we have like a shield-focused gameplay style right now.
Yeah, Fernando's just lighting people on fire.
Yeah, he's
Come
just
on,
kind
guys,
of
you're just flanking with
he's
that
just
dude. Admit
dashing and scorching all over. God. So yeah,
it is impactful though, as I mentioned. Like they're in testing.
We felt
like,
it with 100%.
It feels really good to just know that you're like, okay, like my shield's up, and that's that character I'm up against. I'm fine. Like they're not going to be able to touch me.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, next one. Maeve, Street Justice, has a new effect. It now executes at 35% health with Pounce.
Yep, this is obviously Street Justice is a very highly talked about community concern. We've said it before, and I think we're going to stick by this, that we do feel like our champion should have different dynamics as well as the ability to counter certain classes. It doesn't mean it's going to be with every single character or every single flank is going to have an anti-frontline ability, but we feel like Maeve's a good choice for that, along with the fact that she has to be up close to those front lines, so she inherently puts herself in danger. So we looked at, obviously, last patch, reducing her damage reduction. She had a fairly significant portion, and she lived for a little bit too long. We've done that, but for this one, this change, what we really wanted to address was the fact that this was a anti-frontline talent, except it also was incredibly strong against support. So it was
an anti-everyone.
You were just
previously
dealing so much damage to every single player that you would just pick it up regardless of whether even if the enemy team didn't have front lines, and that's not what we wanted this to play out like. So now we've added not a new effect. We obviously have Execute on Lex, but we wanted to re-explore that mechanic, and we actually felt like this would be a great candidate to do that with.
We didn't show this, did we?
We did not share this. There's also I was going to bring it up. There's also a interesting UI marker. So players that are below 35% will have this skull strewn across their body, and it's going to be pulsating as well. So you're going to know when a player is in that 35% threshold. For any of those who watch our other games, Smite.
Shout outs to you, Thanatos.
Thanatos Execute. It's going to be kind of that similar effect. So you're going to know which targets are in range for you to pounce.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, next change is probably visually my favorite change in this patch. Makoa, talent, Davy Jones locker. New effect, your shell spin now lasts until cancelled and you can control its direction.
I didn't think Garrett would let me do this one. I'll be honest.
Garrett didn't think he was going to let Kevin do this one either.
I suggested it as like this would be fun, half joke manner. And Garrett's like, oh, yeah, we can explore. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do this.
Well, thank you, because it's great.
It's so wonderful.
So
pretty dope.
So, again, wanting to even out the talents a little bit, normalize them. Davy Jones Locker, again, incredibly underplayed for Makoa. Also a talent that directly competed with another talent. And that was the big thing, is you already have a Dredge Anchor talent with Pluck where it gives you bonus damage, and then you have this one where you can reset it, but it required, again, kind of the qualifiers looking at Bucking Madness. It's like, not only do I have to pull them, but then I'm going to need to kill them.
Meet so many of these conditions.
And then, like, when it happens and I reset my cooldown, maybe it's 3 seconds after anyways, and it's like, it's not that big of a difference, and then I could pull someone else, but then they also have to... It was a lot of follow-up. When it worked, it was fun, but it just didn't work often enough. So we looked at what could Makoa use, and really it was he just needed to be in a shell more often.
Yeah, he's a tank. Kind of withdraw those limbs, get that little, tuck that head,
kind
and
of just
spin to your heart's content, guys.
It's gonna be super fun.
Yeah.
But this does give him a mobility option. Gameplay impacting. If you get dismounted from your horse, you're going to be faster than people walking normally.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going... The directional control is actually a little bit different than we normally handle directional control.
It's a little restricted.
It's restricted. It's also going to be camera only. So we think it'll take a little bit to get used to. You can hit players multiple times, which every time you do hit a player, any hitting someone in shell spin cards
you can hit
will
players
activate
multiple times, but good luck hitting players multiple times.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it also, there's a 1.5 second internal cooldown, so you can't just get someone in a corner and bounce them non-stop, because that would not be
like
any
Koopa
fun.
Shell.
Be crushing. Yeah.
All right. Like, oh god,
stop. Leave me alone.
Yep.
Perfect. Next one, Maldamba. A couple of talents that we're working with. Wenko's Wrath now also increases Snake Toss projectile speed from 120 to 200. Increases the internal stun timer from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. And then Ripened Gourd, new effect. Gourd has a 50% chance to not go on cooldown. The Gourd effect does not stack.
Yep. So Wakono's Wrath, the increased projectile speed, it's a very unique mechanic, I think. The
also
Snake Toss from
niche.
Maldamba.
Generally, super unique things are very niche, too.
Yep. So the strength of this was that you could obviously stun players. On a support could be really strong against anti-flank or flanks, or just stopping a front line from holding their shield. There's a lot of uses for this.
On-demand CC with kind of a higher barrier of entry to actually execute on. We're going to lower that barrier of entry, so now it's an on-demand CC. And by on-demand, your reload speed is the demand time.
Yep.
But
by those
very effective.
deft hands, Maldamba. It's really what people want.
We want to make all play styles a possibility here in the realm.
Deft hands, best item. It does have its use cases.
Yes.
It does have its use cases.
Perfect. Did we want to talk about the Gourd 50% chance on not to go cooldown a little bit? What was the decision, or what was the reason behind that decision?
So, again, this was a talent previously that didn't have a lot of high impact. It was 40% slow on enemies, but the nature of Maldamba, obviously, he can be played aggressively. But a lot of times it caused a number of frustrations where it's like, do I heal my allies? I went with this talent. I should probably just slow enemies, and now I'm not healing my team or using one of my utility options. It gave a player... They kind of put a player in a weird spot to use something that primarily is used for healing. Obviously, it does have damage aspects to it as an aggressive tool. So we wanted to give Maldamba another way to heal with Ripened Gourd because he has a number of options for the upfront healing on Mending Spirits. So we went with the 50% Gourd cooldown. And it was important for us that he could basically potentially cover more of an area and be rewarded for doing what he's supposed to do as Maldamba with his Gourds. So you're going to be throwing your Gourds, and sometimes you'll get a chance for it not to go on cooldown. And you could basically paint a whole area. And these don't stack. The healing itself is not super impactful, but the problem with the Gourd is that you can't heal multiple fights or heal a wide area fight. And the 50% chance it's exciting when it happens, and it's only going to happen if you are doing what you're supposed to do. Players don't even have to use it at that time. They can just save the gourd for maybe a later point in the fight, or they could potentially get multiple procs of it and paint the whole battlefield.
And you can also optimize around triggering that proc,
Yep.
right? Like, if I'm throwing more gourds, then my chance to get this proc is going to be increased, right? So I'm going to go Chronos. I'm going to go the cooldown card. I'm going to be more conscientious of like, man, if I put this card right here and I get a proc, then I can go over here. Like, I know there's some commentary on what is this RNG doing in my game. My stance officially is that we will test it with this implementation. I am not going to do like a hammer down, like there will never be a chance to do something or proc something in Paladins. We occupy this very diverse and unique like Venn diagram of MMO, RPG, MOBA, shooter. And generally speaking, you're a competitive game, right? So you want like, okay, everyone's in like, it's a very static environment. Nobody's different, and it's going to be the true element of skill. We think that there is room for fun to be had in our game. Maybe it's not in your like super high elo competitive game with this talent. You got 3 more to choose from, guys. You got however many other supports to choose from. But we will be servicing a portion of our audience with this. And if it turns out we're not, then we'll improve upon it and we'll do something else.
All right. Great. Thanks. Next champion we've got is Moji, talents Toot, removed the move speed bonus and reduced the cloud duration from 6 seconds to 3 seconds. And Moji is another champion that we talk about all of the time. We get a lot of community feedback, both over maybe she's too strong or she's not strong enough. So is Moji a kind of tricky one for you?
She's another one of those enigmas.
She's got her character shape is very odd. She's susceptible to all sorts of damage, and kind of spitting familiars, firing out different types of attacks, and she's able to dash and get close to you and has an immunity state, and then top that off with Toot. And we actually think that Toot specifically was a pretty big polarizing point to Moji. It almost had a 10% plus win rate difference compared to her other talents, and it's just by nature. She was to make this clear, she was out healing Khan, who has a team-wide heal in his base kit. And that was on average she was. So that's including players who are playing Moji
with others
and not using Toot. The nature of this talent just allows you to become this off healer, which we do like the idea of, hey, here's this benefit for your team that you can elect to go into. But the benefit was so strong, mostly because the cloud lasted for 6 seconds, and it was a 600 heal, except every tick would basically refresh the 600 heal, so you could stay in it for the full duration, and then after it went out, it wasn't actually 600 health, it was 1800 plus health that you were healing, which was just a little bit too strong, especially at high levels. This is really where we saw this talent specifically shine. This was actually one of the most dominant things you could go when looking at gold plus, and especially at diamond plus elos.
Right.
Yeah, and as a after comment, I'm not particularly so. Yes, we're taking down this talent, but where that leaves Moji as a whole isn't a spot I want to see her in for long. I'm not super thrilled with kind of like the diversity in her talents.
Yep.
I think we can be better about it, and also there are some aspects to her that we talked about when we're calling the character an enigma. Like, ideally, a character shouldn't be an enigma. So, by no means are we throwing in this towel. We think she can be she is a fun character. You guys really like her. That's evident. Also, she has a really dope skin this patch.
Oh, it's really good. The Dragonborn skin.
But so we're gonna work on her. I don't have a date of like Moji's going to be better now, and to be also on the opposite end, she's not in a like particularly bad state either. It's just she's a little bit funky right now, but we'll even it out.
Cool. Next champion is Pip. Talent combat mechanic has a new effect. Your weapon shots now also heal allies, and we have a chat question about this as well. What happens when you hit both an ally and an enemy with one shot? Will it heal, do damage? Both?
Both. Anyone in the area is getting affected. That means multiple allies are going to get healed, multiple enemies are going to get hit. They're going to be hit enemies are going to be hit and allies healed at the same time. So this is, if you are in the radius of the effect, it will do whatever it's supposed to, whether it's heal or damage you. This talent, though, Combat Medic before, again, one of those things that competed. It was almost a damage option where you're increasing your attack speed for healing players. Again, one of those multi-step qualifiers to get an effect that was only temporary. We wanted to give Pip an option to have more consistent healing because he has his burst healing talent, and this one is going to allow you to have a little bit more consistency. Your burst isn't going to be as strong with the healing, and also we think this one will be pretty fun. It's gonna take a while to get used to. There is the qualifier of, well, it's one thing if my opponents are dodging my shots, but now my allies are also dodging my shots. So this is obviously going to work a little bit better in kind of coordinated teams. We're going to be able to tell them, hey, I have this talent. Make sure you stand there and let me heal you and don't run away from my shots. But in our play testing,
or if you're just really good and you're like dropping these bomb Hail Mary heals from the back line.
But yeah,
that's me.
This one kind of gives Pip a new playstyle, we think, that we're super excited about.
Yeah.
Cool. Next champion, Seris. Seris. I love Seris.
Bae.
I love Seris. Her abilities, Restore Soul, increase the range from 100 to 200.
Yep, this is, it's to 120, so this is just going to make her and Furia match. So we want to kind of bring that in line. Seris is still going to have the option to stay pretty far back and get her healing out. But this will just allow her to stay alive a little bit longer because she already has one of, I don't want to say necessarily the weaker escapes for supports or one of the weaker escapes, but she has that wind-up time, right? And if you want to make that escape better, you have to invest a lot of card points into it to get the bonus, the increased time to get into it and the increased movement speed, and we're fine with that. But because of the opportunity cost of it takes so long to get into a strong state, we wanted to allow her to heal a little bit further back and kind of normalize some of the support ranges.
Kind of a safer position there. And then Talent Soul Collector, we've increased the max stacks from 8 to 15. Yeah,
this was just kind of a weak talent as is. The percentage health and damage it gave you did not feel that impactful, even though it was easy to stack. Just almost every time you're going to want more healing throughput from the Void Abides or Agony to stun players. It just didn't really have a spot at 8 stacks, so we've changed to 15. We've also added a new UI marker for you. So actually next to your portrait, you're actually going to see the soul stacks start to stack up.
Bottom left?
Bottom left.
I actually haven't seen this one
yet. I'll show you after this. Nice. So you'll see that you have how much stacks you have permanently at the time, and you'll be able to notice your health going up as well.
Perfect. Question about Pip again. Does it self-heal? Does his
no.
talent?
No.
Nope, no self-heal.
Important that he couldn't do that.
Yep. Cool. Thank you. Next champion, Sha Lin. Talents Desert Shadow. Remove the 2-second stealth increase.
So Sha Lin actually overall is in a pretty good spot. We're overall happy with him. He's a high skill level champion. That win rate is not as high as some of our other damage champions, which is the higher the skill cap. Typically, you want to see them slightly below the other ones. And overall, his strength is very player skill dependent, but he also can be brought down fairly easy. The only issue we really had was Desert Shadow. The increased stealth on a damage, and we specifically saw this at high levels of play where this damage champion that we really want to sit a lot of times in the back line, otherwise they risk...
He's in a back line. It's just the enemy team's back line.
It's the flank. Sha Lin was a little bit too much, we think. And it was surprising, right? Like if you're a support champion, all of a sudden this 1300 damage burst arrow hits you from behind and you didn't know he was there because he spent 4 seconds flanking around, and then another follow-up arrow instantly kills you. It really didn't feel like you had an opportunity to play against Sha Lin or outplay him. You just had the unfortunate luck of being the first one he appeared next to when his stealth was running out.
Which is the unfortunate just nature of stealth in general. So kind of tweaking those mechanics is a little bit of a task, and at the same time we didn't like remove the stealth on the ability, just the kind of gross magnitude it could persist for.
Yep, perfect. Another champion that is not on our list for today, but we are getting a lot of questions about, is Skye. Generally the state y'all think Skye is, and if her rework will be visual or also kit.
Right now our plan is for visual only, but just as with all champions, I've said it on probably 3 of the ones we've gone over so far, like metas change, characters change, we will see where we can find Sky. And her problem isn't play rate. Her problem isn't like efficacy it's just efficacy in a very small percentage of play. Generally, if you have a character in a game that isn't seen in the professional scene or like the masters scene, then the consensus is this character is trash and it's garbage. I will assure you that players are seeing success with Sky in most levels of play, if not all levels of play. But I understand that she is not a staple in the meta. But having the stealth character be a staple in the meta is an interesting challenge for kind of a class-based shooter, especially. So, first off, so visual rework is going to be the first thing. And actually, that should be real soon, guys.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It looks real freaking good. Yeah. I'm super excited for y'all to get it. But I know we've been talking about it for a while now, and there's some frustration over, like, when is the thing? I think I'm not going to promise, but we will hopefully see it in for the next release. So, and Art may just punch me in the face after I get back from this. But
they're probably mad right now.
Yep. Sorry, Art.
Like, I can't believe he did this.
Oh, that's awesome. That's exciting. The next champion is going to be Tyra. Talent's Hunting Party. Hunter's Mark now also has 2 charges, and Mercy Kill now deals 35% max health. And then one of our cards, Favored Quarry, reduced Hunter's Mark reveal from 2 seconds to 1 second.
Is this the first charges we've done?
No. Like overall?
Having 2 charges?
No, I mean, Furia had one. We've had different ones in the past.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
Furia's talented, though. Yeah, well, this one's talented, too. Never mind.
It's all good.
Never mind. Super excited about this one, though. So Hunting Party is a fairly strong effect, but again, kind of that readability from the player standpoint. You don't really know how impactful it is because it's dependent on your team dealing damage that you can't see outside of seeing someone's health bar go down. We also felt like the Hunter's Mark is just an interesting and fun concept for Tyra's identity, but it didn't really feel like a core part of her gameplay. And having the ability to throw out marks on 2 players gives her a lot more of that kind of stand back, almost general-esque coordination of play. She's always going to be at the top. Man. She's going to be throwing the Molotov firebomb down onto the point. She's going to be marking flanks, basically directing the flow of action. And we think Hunting Party will kind of allow her to do that a little bit more.
Dude, playing against Alex's
Tyra,
Hunting Party Tyra in the playlist, it was like I was a flank. I remember this game vividly because it was just oppressive. Like I was not being able to do my job. So maybe you guys will see the same thing in y'all's games where if you're going up against a team with a fairly flank heavy composition and you're like, okay, how do we build against this? Maybe it's a
Hunting Party Tyra.
Yeah, maybe it's Hunting Party Tyra where you're gonna have 2 marks going up at all times. Like it's pretty gnarly and it's pretty wild. Just Paladins as a shooter. Sorry, I'm getting abstract here, but where if you told any other competitive shooter player that they're like, hey, yeah, there's a character in the game where you can just see 2 people just almost constantly all the time, they'd be like, what? Hacks, bro? Like that's OP. And then we have Tyra, like not really stable in the meta. She's got like really strong zone control, one of the highest DPS weapons in the game, really high burst potential, really good visibility, and her weakness is that she is less mobile, right, than some of our other damage characters. So it's like, how high are we going to be able to crank all these other knobs until?
Because if we add mobility, she is going to just dominate at that point. She needs to have that weakness.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
She has all that benefit. What do you?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm not suggesting anything. Don't worry about it.
Tyra's gonna fly. Oh God, save me.
All right, our next champion is Torvald. We're changing some of his ability, or one of his abilities, Protection, increasing the shield duration from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, and decreasing the cooldown from 9 seconds to 8 seconds. And then his card, Induction, increasing the ammo regeneration from 1 to 2. We also had a Twitch chat question that was, when is Torvald going to get some love? And
in the
what department?
Like the balance department? The skin department?
I'm not sure.
His real life?
He just says love.
Oh.
Whatever your interpretation is.
I don't think he's married. He's currently, I believe, working for the magistrate. They got him busting some long hours, so no time for
no
female
time for
elves.
those relationships. Unfortunate. So yeah, Torvald, we just kind of want you to feel like Torvald when you play Torvald. One of his key components is, right, he's bubbling himself, and then he's kind of throwing on these protective bubbles onto his teammates, but they only lasted for 2 seconds, so it was very hard to time it because you had to go based on, it was mostly you had to wait until the enemy was attacking your team. You couldn't preemptively say, hey, my flank's about to go and let me bubble him, because by the time they actually go in and start dealing some damage, the bubble has worn off, and it's a fairly large cooldown in that instance. So we kind of wanted that extra second that it remains on is going to allow Torvald to be a little bit more dynamic. And it seems small, 1 second, but a lot of times that's blocking that extra 680 shot from Cassie's crossbow or an Androxus ultimate charge. So we think the 1 second, while small, will allow Torvald to have a lot more of a dynamic playstyle and not need to know exactly when the opponent's about to attack for you to actually use your protection.
Perfect. Next champion is Viktor. For his assault rifle, we have improved the hip fire consistency, so that's going to feel a little bit better. And then Talent's Firefight, now unlocked at default, and Gunnery is now unlocked at Champion Mastery 12. It has a brand new name, Burst Mode, and the new effect enables 3-shot burst mode on your assault rifle, increasing damage and improving effectiveness at range.
Yeah, we're super excited about this one. Viktor's our boy, right? He's the guy you get in the tutorial. He's been around the longest. He was one of the first characters I ever did on this project, and he represents kind of everyone's first experience in Paladins, and by the amount of new players we get, people clearly like him. He's always our most played character, every release, regardless of meta. Viktor's the man. And now we think, an option that's going to see him played in higher echelons, which is where's his weakness previously was just how he was put together. Certain aspects of it made him not as viable as some other damage options. And specifically, I want to give a shout out. This idea is I'm not taking credit for it at all. Kevin was a big pusher behind it, but then even before one of our former game designers on Paladins, James Horgan, credit if you know him, was like, he had this idea really long ago, and we couldn't fit it into the schedule. So James, we did it, and it feels awesome, so thank you.
Perfect. Next one is Vivian. Changed her ability Sensor Drone, increasing the max deployment count from 1 to 2. And then the talent Booby Trap now applies a knockback and increases arm time from 0.1 seconds to 0.9 seconds.
Yeah, so important note, max deployed count is not charge count in like Hunting Party is. It is actually the number of booby traps or sensor drones you can have deployed, which now matches Kinessa's Oppressor Mines. And the added knockback we actually think is a unique style, because it is a booby trap, right, where you're going to be revealing people for a short duration and then dealing damage, which is kind of like damage, right?
It was chaotic playing against this Vivian with these. I was just being bounced around and stuff. It's like, what is happening? Like, oh god, I have to think about this character in a whole new way.
Yep, and super excited about that. I think players are really going to learn, like, oh, I always know that the flank takes this route. What if I put a booby trap right there and knock them off the map?
And they're just like, yep.
I'm actually really excited to see how players are going to use this knockback. It's not super strong, right? You're not going to get flung halfway across the map, but it can definitely disrupt a flanker specifically who's kind of looping around behind you.
Or you can just throw it into a team fight and be like, this is going to cause some havoc.
Those next level plays there.
Yeah.
All right. Last but definitely not least on our list is
another
Ying,
big one.
A new talent, Life Exchange. Shatter now instantly heals your target for 800 health, but no longer explodes illusions.
I know we've said this multiple times, but again, the multi-layered talents just are hard to make work without making them overbearingly powerful.
But Kevin, you can get a direct heal if you have this illusion and you detonate it and you're looking at someone. Let me just hit the button and heal. Like,
that's basically what we wanted.
Yeah.
And we actually think this is fun, right? Because this is definitely there's a lot of players that love Maldamba in our game, and they are the Maldamba's the only way to heal. You need to aim your heals. No cone targeters. And we do respect the players, right? Who are very focused on, I'm a highly skilled player. I can take this Maldamba champion who may not be good.
This patch is for those players.
In a weak hands.
We've done 2 in-hand heals. 2 in-hand heals plus the Ying heal. like, guys, if you want to unlock your skill cap potential as a support, now is the time.
And we did it through the talent system too, which I think is really cool. It's not on base players that just jump into Paladins early on and maybe want a little bit of easier time, they can do that. But if you're that skilled player that wants to take Ying to the next level, you can now direct heal. It is aimed, so you can miss this ability. And you also do lose damage output potential, which is important.
I don't know. Ying kind of frags. Like, at first, like, she's
bombs away
tough.
Ying is actually crazy.
And like, our previous meta healers might be taking a backseat this patch. We'll see if we're phasing out the Furias, the Genos, the Dambas, and making way for kind of this new class. But the output that they can get. And I'm talking about Pip, I'm talking about Grohk, I'm talking about Ying, right? With their new direct heal abilities plus all the other heal elements in their kit, they're getting some really gnarly output here. So it may be too much. I don't want to be too presumptuous.
We have some patches to bring them in line if they go too crazy.
And also a week long of PTS too.
Yep.
So get out there on these
Please.
PTS guys, like test it. Actually, it's more than a week. Excuse me. We'll be watching those streams closely. We'll be playing it ourselves. So.
Perfect. So that's all the champions that we have to go over, but a bunch of questions in chat about Jhin right now.
About what?
Xin.
Jhin? What specifically?
The tyrant.
Specifically, Jhin is strong with Yomi, and he can go through Shields of Fernando, and he plans to look at that talent.
Oh, okay. So, I'm well, the thing about going through shields, that should be fixed this patch. That was actually something that wasn't on the patch notes or the bug fixes, but did make it into the build. So shout outs to the guys solving those issues, but that should be a non-issue now. So Yomi isn't going to be passing through Fernando or Con shields as it was previously, so a little bit more consistent. In regards to it being strong, it is strong. It's not too strong in our stance, in our eyes. You may disagree. You're allowed. But Xin is a character that embodies a lot of what the flank class is without being super oppressive. He's extremely survivable, still has low health. Like, we took the damage off of the 2 front swings previously, and that solved kind of how the departments that he was an outlier in. We saw him fall into line like right where we wanted him across all levels of play in terms of damage done, amount died. So I don't intend to adjust Xin unless something drastic changes soon. Unless there's overpowering evidence, which we have yet to see.
All right, perfect. Well, I don't seem to have any other questions right now for y'all. Thank you guys so much. We just hit time.
Nice.
Yeah.
We made it.
So
Okay.
yeah, we did it. I was trying to think. Do we have any other questions here? I think we hit them all. Thank you guys so much. As usual, patch notes are on paladins.com, and we'll see you in the realm.
Oh, Alyssa.
Wait. PTS.
PTS.
Yeah. PTS should be up today.
PTS.
We are busting our butts.
Are you asking for yourself or?
PTS should be up later today. If you keep an eye on our social media, we will let you know as soon as that happens. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.